Right, so I want to look now at the aspect of driving itself. And looking around page 34, this is I believe it's the first lesson where little Peck is actually sitting by herself trying to drive the car. So this is where I want to look at where Peck, this is around page 34 as far as the edition that I have. And Peck says, okay, now listen up. We're not going to fool around with this. This is serious business. I will never touch you while you're driving a car, understand? Which is curious because it's just false. So when Little Bit was younger, when she was around 11, she had driven back with Uncle Peck in the car, and that's the first time that he feels her up. We see this later at the very end of the play. So it's just not true. So it's rather curious. A little bit further down, Uncle Peck says, "There's something about driving when you're in control of the car, just you and the machine in the road, that nobody can take from you. A power. I feel more myself in my car than anywhere else. That's what I want to give to you." Now you can think about this aspect of the car being secluded, has the same sort of function as the treehouse. It's sort of cut off, you can take it away, other people aren't going to go there. And there's a sort of power in his hands that Uncle Peck enjoys having. So again, this idea of manual manipulation, things like that, that he's going to teach her how to have this power herself. There are a lot of assholes out there, crazy men, arrogant idiots, drunks, angry kids, geezers who are blind, and you have to be ready for them. I want to teach you to drive like a man. Little Bit says, what does that mean? Peck, men are taught to drive with confidence, with aggression. The road belongs to them. They drive defensively, always looking out for the other guy. Women tend to be polite, to hesitate, and that can be fatal. You're going to learn to think what the other guy is going to do before he does it. If there's an accident and 10 cars pile up, and if people get killed, you're the one who's going to steer through it, put your foot on the gas if you have to, and be the only one to walk away. I don't know how long you or I are going to live, but for damn sure not going to die in a car. So if you're going to drive with me, I want you to take this very seriously. Little Bit says, I will, Uncle Peck. I want you to teach me to drive. So those are pretty serious words there. I want you to teach me to drive, particularly if we're looking at driving being not just about driving a car, but having something to do with maybe an initiation in this way of manipulating other people. Think about that little passage about walking out of an accident, that Peck wants her to be able to do that. You can think about sort of the accident of the drama, as far as the family's a wreck already, and Uncle Peck's going to sort of have his own little wreck as far as with alcohol. But in a way, we could say maybe that that Little Bit is actually walking away from that. Sort of, she's managed to steer clear of the worst of it. It seems that she's gone through without fully doing the deed with Uncle Peck. So although she's been scarred by his molestation and sort of just the manipulation, the mind games over the years, she could have been worse off, I guess we could say. So that's at least one way that she sort of is able to get out of that. So further evidence of a little bit basically knowing what's going on, we can find on page 49. So this is when Peck has sort of been counting down the days until when he can come, and she's just really kind of freaked out. So she says, basically, you've been waiting down there at the bottom of page 49 until my 18th birthday. I'm not a child, Uncle Peck. You were counting down to my 18th birthday, Peck. So, a little bit. So, statutory rape is not in effect when a young woman turns 18. You and I both know that. I think you misunderstand. I think I understand all too well. I know what you want to do 5 steps ahead of your doing it. Defensive driving 101. So here, the two aspects, the sort of sexual scheming and driving a car are clearly brought together. Just make a quick little note, and that's that the mom was already sort of onto this aspect around page, I think it's 55 or so. The mom says that Peck's affections towards Little Bit are just not really appropriate at all. Around page 54 or so, we have Peck saying that he wants to marry Little Bit, so he's just sort of living in a different sort of world, and that's basically the last that she's going to see of him in person. So let's look now at the very end of the last few pages of the drama. So we have a little bit sort of come back to herself, and we have her in the present. She's been looking back at time and trying to make some sense of all this. She asks a series of questions there in the middle of page 55. Who did it to you, Uncle Peck? How old were you? Were you 11? Peck moves to the driver's seat of the car and waits. This is a little note. Sometimes I think of my uncle as a kind of Flying Dutchman. In the opera, the Dutchman is doomed to wander the sea, but every 7 years he can come ashore if he finds a maiden who will love him of her own free will. He will be released. And I see Uncle Peck in my mind, in his Chevy 56, a spirit driving up and down the back roads of Carolina, looking for a young girl who, of her own free will love him, release him. So here we have a little bit doing a pretty different reading of Uncle Peck than probably most of us are doing in the audience. She's trying to sort of extend some compassion towards him. She's trying to understand why he did the things the way that he did, whether he himself seemed to undergo the same sort of experience. She takes it as just tacit that he did, saying, "Who did it to you, Uncle Peck? So where did you learn how to do this stuff?" We see the cyclical nature of this kind of trauma, and that's an aspect where the play is most tragic, particularly in the Greek sense, that sins are inherited, that someone does something bad to you, someone does something bad, and then you yourself are going to suffer the consequences for what your father and grandfather and so forth have done. And so that's something that's probably worth pondering. Let's go forward a little bit in the play down towards the end. I want to look at just the last little scene about the driving. Okay, so this is between Peck, and what we have here is a teenage chorus who's actually speaking the part of Little Bit. So Little Bit is now just a body sitting there, and we have the chorus speaking her role. I've not seen this play myself in person, but I imagine it's a pretty different experience than reading it, particularly as we come to the end of this end section. So the chorus says, "But it's against the law at my age. Peck, you can't tell anyone I'm letting you do this, but I can't reach the pedals. You can sit in my lap and steer. I'll push the pedals for you. Did your father ever let you drive his car?" So it's this sort of old hat for you. "No way. Want to try? Okay. You're just a little thing, aren't you? Now think of the wheel as a big clock. I want you to put your right hand on the clock where the 3 o'clock would be, and your left hand on 9. Little Bit, the note says, puts one hand to Peck's face to stroke him, and then she takes the wheel. Am I doing it right? That's right. Now, whatever you do, don't let go of the wheel. You tell me whether to go faster or slower. Not so fast, Uncle Peck. Little Bit, I need you to watch the road." Peck puts his hands on Little Bit's breasts. She relaxes against him, silent, accepting his touch. Now, if she were of age, if she were not as young as she was, this would be sort of acceptable action. But Peck's supposed to be the responsible agent here, and she's just sort of relaxing into this, so this doesn't get him off the hook, should go without saying. But it's curious to watch. It's also curious because of the fact that we have an adult actress probably playing the older Little Bit and the younger Little Bit as well. So as an audience, we can think of ourselves as being pulled between these polarities of thinking this is fine or this is unacceptable because she's just 11. Between thinking this is just fiction and this is reality. So as an audience member, this can be a very sort of upturning little action. Okay. Going a little bit further, so Little Bit says, "That was the last day I lived in my body. I retreated above the neck, and I've lived inside the fire in my head ever since." So again, this sort of confessional idea. We could think about Little Bit as wanting to regain her body, to get it back after it's been sort of taken from her by this action. This is a pretty common phenomenon among people who've sort of undergone this sort of trauma and child molestation or other sorts of sexual acts of sexual aggression, a sort of hatred of the body, either hating it because of what happened to it or because of it sort of being the thing that's carrying the sin itself.